morning, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to check, first of all, that you can all see my PowerPoint. All right. Okay, so this morning we are going to be looking at iSOSY resources, and there's quite a lot of new stuff on the website. So for those who are familiar with the site, there may be some new things for you to learn today too. So the objectives today is we want to become familiar with the resources found on the iSOSY website and explore some practice to use the and with our high schoolers who are at risk of dropping out. So first of all, just what is iSOSY? And iSOSY, we have 18 states that are part of the Migrant Education Program Consortium Incentive Grant. And we develop resources and materials to help OSY. So the website is for out-of-school youth and also for secondary students who
Is Veronica freezing for everybody else?
as a high schooler or an out-of-school youth.
Hey, Veronica?
Yes.
You're freezing a little bit. Maybe shutting off your camera might help, just an FYI.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, so then the definition of the OSY, for those who are maybe a little newer at this, our out-of-school youth are youth up through age 21, which means that they can be in the program until they turn 22. And they're students who meet the definition of a migratory child who have not graduated from high school, and they're not currently enrolled in a K-2 program. So we have really a wide variety of students that can be categorized as out-of-school youth. So some of them may be youth who have aged out of school. They may be youth who've dropped out because they're disengaged students. They may be youth who are needing or wanting to work full-time. They may be youth that are here to work specifically, or they may be young parents who have dropped out of school to take care of children or to support children. So options for success for our out-of-school youth. We, first of all, always want to try to re-engage a student who's dropped out back into regular high school, or if your area has an alternate high school, we do here in Omaha, we have a program called Accelerate where you can graduate more quickly if you're an older student. So we always want to try to re-engage our out-of-school youth back into school. If that's not going to work for them though, Job Corps Nebraska is an excellent option. I've had fantastic success with sending students to Job Corps, even students who have very little English. Our Job Corps out in Western Nebraska at Chadron does a fantastic job with them. The majority of them have graduated with a high school diploma. They get a high school diploma there and a job skill within 2 years max. The GED is another option. It is possible to do the GED in Spanish. GED is very challenging, but it is an option for students who are not able to stay in school. And then there may be some other options in your area that you can explore. In Omaha, we have a great program called Youth Build. It's kind of like a mini Job Corps. You learn construction and you get a GED and you actually get paid while you're studying. Job Corps and Youth Build, you both need documentation. GED could be for anybody. For students who don't have the time to commit to such a serious program of study, they may be interested in doing ABE on the tier 3 here, which is adult basic education, basically just improving their general skills. English second language, some life skills, which we have a life skills curriculum on iSOSY, or some vocational training. So these are pictures of some of my students that have taken alternate paths to graduation. The student on the left went through an alternate high school called Accelerate, and He had moved from New York State to Texas and then to Omaha. So very disrupted schooling, and he finished up in an accelerated program. The students in the middle entered a GED program. Most of the students I have don't test high enough to get into GED. You need to be at an 8th grade reading level. So they first had to do more ESL before they could get into GED classes. And the student on the right graduated from Job Corps after having dropped out of high school and being one of those students that nobody thought would ever graduate. He graduated proudly from Job Corps. These are examples of students who did not want to devote that much time to their studies, but were still interested to learn. So the student on the left was working full-time in our industry here in Omaha is meat packing. So he needed to work full-time, but I worked with him from the iSOSY website using ESL curriculum. The student in the middle was a young lady that dropped out of school to stay home with her little one, and she was interested to learn some ESL, also some life skills, some of the parenting curriculum from iSOSY, as well as studying for her learner's permit and citizenship test. And the young lady on the right, also a full-time worker in meat packing, and she was interested to learn some ESL and then basic life skills and basic literacy skills with curriculum from the iSOSY website. One thing that's very important with our students is we really want to find out what their goals are. So a lot of times as educators, we have our goals for our students. It may not be a goal that the student is really interested in. So it's very important to find out what is motivating this student. What is their goal? What are they interested in? And on the iSOSY website, there's a great goal setting curriculum. And part of it is this personal learning plan. You don't need to do the whole goal setting curriculum with your out of school youth. It's quite a lengthy curriculum, and I think it actually works very well with high schoolers or an out of school youth that you have longer time with. But for an out of school youth that you may only have a short time with, you can still do the personal learning plan and help them to set up goals and step by which to reach their goals. And this can be accessed under instructional planning tile on the iSOSY website or the data collection tile. So we are now going to break into breakout groups and do some introductions. So it's always interesting to meet other people across Nebraska. And I think one of the best ways that we can learn is by picking each other's brains and getting good ideas from what others are doing and finding out more about what's going on across the state. So in our breakout groups, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes. There'll be 3 people in each group. If you can give your name and the project you're working in, a challenge you've had working with OSY or maybe with high schoolers, if that's who you're working with, and a success that you've had working with your OSY or at-risk high schooler. And since I'm an ESL teacher, I always have sentence stems. So if this is helpful, you can go ahead and use those. This is what I would do with an ESL student, is to give them a sentence stem. Hi, my name is, I work in the whatever project for me, Omaha. A challenge I have had working with OSY is, and working with OSY is very challenging. So don't need to give the whole laundry list, but at least one challenge and then one success. So we'll go ahead and break into groups and do our introductions. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the iSOSY site and do some direct exploration of what can be found on the new site. So as we go through the site, we're going to look at different resources and look at who we could use these resources with and how we could use them. As we go, I also want you to think of which lesson or curriculum might be the most useful to you, and you might want to bookmark it so that you can easily find it again. So after we've explored the site, we are going to be doing another breakout group where we talk about which curriculum or lesson we resonated most with us and that we feel that we could use with our students. So be thinking about that as we go through. And also, as we go through the different resources, think about your particular group of OSY and think about the different groups that we spoke about, the young parents, the Here to Work group, the group that's interested to go to Job Corps or work on their GED, and you'll see how the things on the website are useful for, you can find something for really every group of students. What I'd like you to do is to, on a separate tab, go ahead and open up the website. So I'll be sharing my screen, but you might want to follow along on your own tab to make sure that after the presentation, you can find the materials. So the website is there at the bottom of my screen, osymigrant.org, and you might want to bookmark it. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to pull up. If you just Google iSOSY, it doesn't tend to pull up, but if you put the osymigrant.org, you will find it right away.
And I just put it in the chat as well.
Excellent. All right. So here's the website. And if you want to, you can watch the tour of the new website, but it's basically what I'm going to be doing with you. But if you forget anything, you can always watch the tour of the new website. And so this is our brand new website put together to be more interactive and engaging for providers and students. So you'll see at the top the tabs for home administrator, practitioner, student, and so on. You'll also find tiles when you scroll down. So here's the what's new. And then if you scroll down further, you'll find the OSY resources. So everything appears in more than one place. So I would recommend just coming straight down here to the iSOSY resources because you can find everything right here. And you'll see 6 tiles. The first one is a new student portal. So we're very excited about this. This is going to be a student portal. It's not there yet, but it's coming soon. So this will be right here. The students start here. This will be a portal that students can go to directly and find all kinds of interactive activities that they can do by themselves. There'll be some recorded lessons and other interactive activities. So you could do it with them or they could do it by themselves. So this is something brand new that I think will be very popular with our students. Data collection, here you can find all the forms that you need for your OSY. So you'll find the OSY profile and you'll find the Form 1, which is a form that we need to fill out documenting our use of the iSOSY website. The instructional resources is where I spend the majority of my time. There's also a provider portal, COVID-19 resources, and webinars. So this is where you can find some professional development that you might want to do with your staff that are working with out-of-school youth. For today, I'm going to spend most of the time on the instructional resources because this is where you're going to find the majority of the materials that you would be using working with your students and providing instruction for your OSY. So we'll access right there. And you'll find 9 tiles. So we've got reading, math, and writing, then ELL, life skills, and ACES. And at the bottom, the instructional planning resources, the OSY English language screener, and some post-secondary resources. So I'm going to start with the reading, math, and writing. Reading, math, and writing, they're a curriculum called Reading on the Move, Math on the Move, and Writing on the Move. So the reading has 24 lessons, and it's written at a 3rd to 5th grade reading level. The reading, it has all the skills that you need for reading in high school or in a GED program. So you can see the different types of topics like point of view, context clues, predicting and inferring, fact versus opinion, main idea. These are all the types of skills that you need for high school English, as well as your GED. Each one also comes with an assessment, which for using iSOSY, when we record our use of the materials, we need to show growth. We need to have a pre and a post test. So these all come with an assessment, which is really helpful. The place that I would recommend using these lessons is for tutoring high schoolers, helping them to catch up with their English reading. It's also a great curriculum, though, for anybody who's interested in preparing to go to Job Corps and maybe they haven't left yet. It's usually a month or two wait. You could be working on this with them. And it's really excellent for students who are interested in working on their GED, but they're not high enough yet to get into a GED program. So for the GED programs, you need to be reading at an 8th grade level. The majority of my students are not reading at an 8th grade level. So this is a perfect bridge because it's a 3rd to 5th grade level, and they can practice all their GED skills, but at a lower level, a lower reading level. So this is very useful, and I've used this a lot with my students that want to start working on GED or who are interested in going to Job Corps or just general high school tutoring. So the math is, this is a really great curriculum. If you go to the math, you'll find two different choices. We have Math on the Move, which is basic math, and then we have Math for Living. So if you go to Math on the Move, you'll find a curriculum that's in both English and Spanish. So it's also pre-GED, or you could use it with tutoring a high schooler. One of the things that I really like about this curriculum is that because it's in English and Spanish, it's really helpful for coaching a Spanish speaker in math terminology in English. So most of our students that are in high school are not lucky enough to be in a dual language program. So they have to do their math in English. And so having the exact same lesson in Spanish and English is really helpful in getting our high schoolers on board with some of that English math terminology. For those who are wanting to do their GED in Spanish, there's a lot of pre-GED materials right there for you to use for them to practice their math until they're high enough to enter a GED program, or to support them with their GED when they're in another program and you're providing support. The Math for Living is more of a practical curriculum. So you're going to find things like making a budget, or payroll deductions, advertisements, comparing prices, and finding the best buy. And this comes with a pre and a post assessment. So this curriculum is really, really good for students who are out of school, but they need math for practical daily life lessons. There's one here that would be also excellent for high schoolers, which is Paying for College. So in the Paying for College one, it has all kinds of really good information where you can learn about how to pay for college. So this could be a lesson that you could do with a high schooler. And it talks all about Pell Grants, loans, Stafford loans, work-study programs, scholarships. And so this would be something excellent to do with high school students, especially now that, for us anyway, the Buffett Scholarship is opening up, and it's a really good time to be learning about scholarships. Whoops, sorry about that. Let's go here. Okay, the writing curriculum is very similar. It's just slightly lower than your 8th grade level, and great for practicing writing with high schoolers or pre-GED students. The next tile I'm going to go to is the ELL tile, and I think the majority of our students are very interested in working on their English. So in the ELL tile, there's all kinds of excellent options for them to use. So first of all, the English for Daily Life lessons. These are new lessons that are very interactive and fun for students to work on. So they're full of videos and Quizlets and fun hands-on things to do. The topics that you can find there: banking, all about the car, emergencies, groceries and shopping, in your community, and health. So I'm going to look really quickly at the car parts one just to give you an idea of what you may find. So can access that right here. And just as an example, I'm going to show you one of the little vocabulary videos. And I won't put full screen because we'll just look at it for a few minutes.
Parts of the car. Headlight. Mirror.
So that's something that you can do either with your student or you can have them do it independently. But these lessons are very popular with the students because they're interactive, they have videos, they have games, and they can be accessed online, or you can print off materials if you don't have internet, and you can do the lessons offline as well. The next tile that I'm going to look at is the stat lessons, and these are brand new. Right now we just have one lesson up, but we are going to be posting in the very near future a lot of other lessons. And the stat lessons, what their a strong point is that they're short and they're very much pertinent to our students' lives. So the first one, as you can see, is at work. Oftentimes when we're working with our out-of-school youth, we don't really have that much time with them. And so these lessons are great. They come with a pre and a post test, and you can do it relatively quickly. It won't take you more than 30 minutes to do a lesson with the students. So this lesson about work, so for example, we can look at the practice worksheet. This lesson is teaching all about items that you would find at work. Very practical and useful for students. It also has some, if you go to the lesson plan, you can find a Quizlet, which has flashcards. And again, if you don't have online access, you will also find paper copies of everything that you might need. So this, for example, has the flashcards. If you click on the flashcard, it will show you what's on the other side. And if I continue down, I can also hear the vocabulary.
Bucket. La cubeta. Shovel. La pala.
And this is really useful for students too.
Bag. El bolso. Ladder. La escalera.
So the stat lessons are really nice. So there's more coming. Some of the ones to follow will be staying in a hotel, dairy, if anyone has students working on a dairy, hand washing, one about heat. So various other practical lessons. So new stat lessons are coming soon. So check back to see what's new. So let me just find my place here. So going back to the EL tile, another curriculum that I wanted to show you besides the English for Daily Life and the stat lessons. All of these are good, but another one that I use quite a bit is called English for Working and Living. And this one is more of a traditional paper and pencil type of curriculum. Has a lot of basic ESL topics like family, parts of the body, time of day, calendar, and seasons. And it looks like this. So very basic. It's in English and Spanish. One of the things I like about it is if you are making copies, the lesson will copy up on the front and back of one piece of paper. It took me a while to realize too, when I was using this curriculum, that if you scroll all the way to the end of the packet, that's when you'll find all the worksheets. So there'll be a practice sheet, to do some writing activities and some grammar activities for each lesson, and that can be found at the very end. So for some of my students that like to work paper and pencil, don't have internet access, I like to make some copy of these. We can do some together. I leave some as homework for them to do, and we can pick up on it the next time that I'm there. For pre and post test, you could use some of the practice exercises as a pre and post test, or if you wanted to, you could go ahead and do the language screener, the iSOSY language screener, if you're working with a student for a longer time, and then you can get a pre and a post score for your student in English. The next curriculum that I wanted to look at is the life skills, and this is another one that I use frequently. So the ESL, you can use those really for any of your students that are interested in improving their English. The STAT lessons, as I said, it is for students that you may have a shorter amount of time with, and the other lessons would be for students that you are working with on a more consistent basis. So let's look at the life skills. So under the life skills, these are designed to teach vocabulary and also helping students to thrive in their current life circumstances. And all of the lessons have a lesson plan, and they have pre and post assessments. And it doesn't matter which order you do them in. I usually just pick one that would be most pertinent for the student I'm working with. So there are life skills on health, finances, legal, parenting, basic life skills, which are things like knowing how to write your name, address, and fill out a form. And then the STAT lessons appear here as well, since the STAT is also ESL and life skills. So I'm going to look at the health tile first of all, because there are some lessons on here that I use a lot with my students. So under the health tile, you'll find one on COVID-19, one on a healthy house, and one on for your health, some general health topics. The COVID-19 lessons are ones that I tend to use right away when I meet a student. Sometimes when we meet students, we don't know if we're ever going to be able to work with them again. We may only have one opportunity. So I like to show up with, like as a first touch point, I like to show up with a COVID kit, some masks, some hand sanitizer, and a quick COVID lesson reminding our OSY that they are frontline workers and we want to really value them and make sure that they stay safe and healthy. Some of my students, since many of them have dropped out of school, they're not very enthusiastic when they see somebody calling from, we're allied with Omaha Public Schools here in the Omaha Migrant Program. So they're not sometimes very excited for me to come and see them because they think I'm going to try to drag them back to school. But what I found is if I'm coming to do a life skill lesson, I always show up with some goodies. So if I ask a student, hey, I've got some masks and some hand sanitizer for you, you know, can I come over? Oh yeah, sure. If I'm doing a lesson on parenting, if I tell the student I've got a bag of diapers for you, can I come over and visit? They'll be very happy to have me come over. So sometimes I just have to think of things like that to get my foot in the door. And once I'm in, they realize I'm not that bad after all, and that migrant program actually has something that might interest them. So with the COVID-19 lessons, we have these lessons in English, Spanish, Swahili, Arabic, Nepali, and Karen. So I think most people are working with Spanish speakers, but for those that are working with some of the refugee languages, it's more difficult to find resources in those languages. And so it's really nice to have these lessons in all of the languages, or many of the languages that we work with. So we'll take a quick look at the English lesson. It's set up like the other life skill lessons, starting out with vocabulary. So even for a student who is doing the lesson in Spanish, for example, their native language might be Quiche or Canjobal, and so some vocabulary is always useful, or even if English even if they're doing the lesson in English, because it's not in their native language, it's a good idea to always to start out with vocabulary. So the lesson has a lot of pictures in it, to make sure, and it's written on a fairly low reading level. And then if you want to, you can either print this out and do it as a paper copy, or if you want to, it also has videos in all the different languages. So this video, for example, we can look at this. So that video always cracks me up because it just makes the pandemic seem so cheerful with that cheerful music. I do love it. But it's really fun too, like in the Karen version, for example, to see the information in all the different languages. And then this video will be in Karen if we have any.
Odo tu pata do upo lolu kwa wei okotota gilo ami ato do ta okete peto talo tabita bo bakaro coronavirus.
So I know everybody understood at least one word in that video. Then we also have the student version of the lessons, and these ones are a little bit more interactive. You can use the student one with your student if you prefer it over the provider one. And they're done in, let me show you the student lesson part 2. They're in English and Spanish, so I don't have them in the other languages right now. So this is set up as a video.
Life skills, lesson 2. Throughout this video,
so you can see that, a student could go through this and have the whole thing read to them.
On a crowded van or bus, wear your mask and keep the windows open. Wear washable overalls, boots, and gloves at work, as well as home work. You have a right to a safe. You hope you say national mask.
And I just wanted to
B, keep the windows open. C, both A and B.
So it stops and asks questions. I just wanted to show you that. So then you can, the student can check a question before they go on. Under the health section, the Healthy House is also a really good one to do with any of our students. So this has all kinds of topics that a lot of times our families are put into housing that's kind of can be a little unsanitary. And we have lots of families that struggle with bed bugs or insects and so on. And so in here, there's lots of practical tips and advice and help that I think is useful for any of our students. So I would recommend doing these life skill lessons sometimes as the very first lesson that you do with a student, because there'll be something for absolutely everybody. And I think Cesar is working some more on the Healthy House lesson. The last tile under the health is For Your Health. And down at the bottom here, there's a really good video that I like to use in conjunction with one of the lessons in For Your Health. So I'm going to start out with this video. It's an agricultural youth worker stories. And this is done by the Department of Ag in conjunction with some of the iSOSY staff. So let's look at this, and then we're going to see how we could use it along with the heat lesson from the For Your Health.
Prácticas de seguridad para la cosecha a mano. ¿Cómo pueden los jóvenes de 12 años o más mantenerse seguros mientras trabajan en la agricultura? ¿Sabías que trabajar en la agricultura es uno de los 10 trabajos más peligrosos? Algunos de los accidentes y lesiones más comunes que pueden ocurrir en la agricultura son cortaduras con herramientas de mano como cuchillos, lastimarse con máquinas, lesiones musculares y enfermedades causadas por el calor. Es muy importante saber lo que puedes hacer para estar seguro mientras trabajas en la agricultura. Hoy, Juana y Adrián compartirán sus historias.
All right, so we'll go out of that. So I just wanted to show you that. And then when I go into the lessons, there's a lot of lessons that are really useful. One of them is on safety at work, especially heat safety. So I like to show the video along with doing that. And there's a pre and a post test for all of them. So the parenting one, there's so much to see here, but I don't want to run out of time because we're going to do another breakout group and I want to leave time for that. So the parenting one has some really good lessons that I love to do. I have worked with some students that I, haven't received any prenatal care, and some of the parenting ones are really excellent to do with them. There's also information about using car seats and other things that are very useful for parents. Under the instructional resources and planning, you can find information on goal setting. So this is where you can find your goal setting and student learning materials. The goal setting books and curriculum are, I think, outstanding and awesome to use with high schoolers. So these are books that you can print out and they can use them. It helps them to set goals and go after their dreams, and they can make up a book like this. It does take a little bit of time, so you would have to be meeting with the student with some consistency. So I really like this for our high schoolers, but it can be used with out of school youth definitely as well. And then one thing that I like to do with all of our students is to do the personal learning plan. So this is what the personal learning plan looks like. We've looked at it before. And it's really helpful. They don't need to set a goal like, what's your lifelong goal? They could set a short goal like, I want to improve in a certain class in school, or I want to score higher on my post test for my English for ESL. So, or I want to buy a car, save up to buy a car. So it could be any number of things. But I would highly recommend doing a personal learning plan with each of your students. So then the final tile that we're going to look at is under the instructional resources. There's one for college and career, and this is really great for high schoolers. So if you come right down here to the post-secondary resources, you'll find stuff for working with a high schooler that is interested in going to college. And this preparing for college course materials. It's an excellent curriculum for our students. So all kinds of stuff that students can do about careers, about planning for college. That's really an excellent curriculum. So I'm going to close that up for right now and go back to my PowerPoint. And we are going to do another breakout group. But before we do it, we're going to take a few minutes. I had asked you to think about which curriculum you think might be something that you could use. Which do you think was your favorite lesson or something that you could see yourself using with students? And we're going to take a few minutes, maybe about 4 or 5 minutes, just to look a little bit deeper and give you an opportunity to explore. So I wasn't sure about giving these 5 minutes because I know some people will say, whoop, time to go home, time to bail out and do something else, or time to do my emails. But I really think that some of the reason that we don't use the website is that we just don't have time to look at all the amazing resources. So I wanted to give 5 minutes to look at the resources. After these 5 minutes, we're going to go into our breakout rooms. And in your breakout room, you are going to be accountable to show the lesson that you chose to your group and explain how you would plan to use this lesson. So just to go over the instructions again, we're going to take about 5 minutes, and it might need to be 4 minutes because I think I got a little carried away showing all the great resources on iSOSY. So maybe it's going to be just 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes is how I can be in charge of that. just to look and see which one of those lessons that you liked and you think you could use. And then after those few minutes, you'll see yourself being put into a breakout room. And when you get into the breakout room, show the lesson to your group and tell them how you think you are going to use that lesson with and which students you would use it with. So let's take a few minutes, and after a few minutes, you will find yourself being put into a breakout room. We did not have enough time, even though we gave you 5 minutes, but we want to respect everybody's time and not make our this presentation too long. So, but I hope it gave you a little bit of an idea and some time to think about how you might use some of these lessons. If you can type into the chat, I'm really curious to see what appealed to people, what you thought was interesting, what you thought that you'd be able to use. So if you can type into the chat which lesson or curriculum you talked about in your group, that would be great. I wanted to continue with talking about the accountability piece of being a member of the iSOSY consortium. So Nebraska is a member of the iSOSY consortium, which means we have access to all this great material. No need to create lessons yourself. There's a whole bunch of lessons right here at your fingertip for any variety of student that you might be working with. But that also comes with some accountability, and we are accountable for using the iSOSY lessons since we are a member state. So at the end of the reporting period, your director or coordinator, or if you are the director or coordinator, you fill out this Form 1, which is the iSOSY Form 1. And this is just part of it that I put up here on this slide. There's lots of different questions, but one of the things that we need to know at the end of the year is the number of migratory students that used iSOSY instructional materials. Any high schoolers, how many used an iSOSY, even if they only used one iSOSY lesson, but did they use something from iSOSY? And you're welcome to adapt any of the lessons. If you feel like a lesson's too long, you can make it shorter, as long as the student is able to do the pre and post test and have mastered the information in the lesson. That is the goal. So we're going to be looking at how many students use the lessons, and then also number of migratory OSY and at-risk secondary students that did a pre and a post test and increased their score. So in order to increase their score by 5 percentage points in the life skill lessons, for example, there's only 5 questions and the post test has a bonus 6 question. So even if they get one, even if they did the bonus on the 6th question and they get that right, they will go up by 5 percentage points. So it's really easy to make a gain. But as with all data, if you try to do everything at the end of the year, it's going to be a disaster. So what I usually do is each time I just have this form up in front of me, and each time I do a lesson, I write down the student's name, I write down which lesson I did with them, and I write down what, and I keep a running list that just goes throughout the year. So I would highly recommend that. It makes it so much easier at the end of the year instead of trying to remember which students did what. We also, on this Form 1, it also asks which students had a learning plan and did they make progress on their learning plan. And again, with the learning plans, I usually, you know, you don't need to make their goal, I want to be an astronaut, even if they do. Pick a goal that's more achievable and steps that you'd be able to do with them within the course of a year. So it's really easy for them to make progress on their learning plans, even if they just reach 1 or 2 of the steps. But we want to make sure that we're doing learning plans with at least some of our students, and we'll be accountable for that at the end of the year. So with that, I just wanted to, I wanted to say is the Omaha survey. So please don't do this unless you're from Omaha. But as Benjamin said, please at the end of every training, don't forget to do your the survey that we need to do that shows that you participated in this out of school youth evaluation, and mark that the area that the presentation was secondary and out of graduation and out of school youth. So this is for Omaha. Go ahead and can use your phones, Omaha, to do the survey. And others, if you want to take a moment right now to fill out the survey for your project, that would be excellent. And please take time to go back to the website. I hope you bookmarked it and just dig in a little bit deeper. I really just scratched the surface, tip of the iceberg, but there's lots of great materials for you to use that will really make your lives a lot easier in working with out of school youth. So that's it for me.